My recently released video titled 10 Reasons Why Linux is Better Than Mac OS received far more attention than I anticipated based on the comments from viewers. Some commented I was a Linux fanboy, while others felt there was a chance I was drunk when I came up with my list. Although I'm neither a fanboy or drunk, I thought it would be fitting to release a video about 10 reasons why I think Mac is better than Linux or Windows. First, let me debunk the fanboy theory that some mentioned. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you should know a few things about me already. First, the videos I release are only just my opinion, and hopefully you know to take them with a grain of salt. Many of us have our own set of experiences that differ greatly from mine. The bottom line is it's an opinion, not a scientific study proving one thing or the other. Second, I don't really espouse one OS over the other. Rather, I like to talk about the features and abilities that make each operating system strong. Suffice it to be said, the last thing I can remember ever being a fan of was the original Star Trek, and well, I was 9 back then. With all that being said, thank you for your comments. I do enjoy them even if I don't necessarily agree with them. Nobody can live in your shoes and experience what you have, so regardless, I respect your opinion. Now on to the top 10 reasons why I think Mac is better than Linux. Number 1. Mac OS is a perfect fusion of open source and closed source. When Apple decided it was time to move to a new operating system, I was initially surprised at their decision to use open source as the basis for OS X. But few can disagree with the incredible stability and feature-rich environment that users of OS X and Mac OS have come to love. Sure, as with any OS, there are some shortcomings, such as a lack of a cut option in the Finder menu, but of all the operating systems, Mac does it best. This was one of the major disagreements in my previous video where I stated that the stability of Linux was better than Windows or Mac. It would have been more accurate to say Mac OS is on par with Linux and certainly is stable and ready to use out of the box. The first thing a Linux user must do for most of the distros is an update to improve stability. As mentioned before, this has been my experience. It really does depend on which distribution you're using. With Mac, no matter which system you buy, the out-of-the-box experience is sure to be a good one. Number 2. Apple does a reasonable job of respecting user privacy with Mac OS. Compared to the all-out assault from Windows or Android, I don't see any obvious signs of information harvesting. Although there is sure to be some information collection, it appears to be at a minimum. Unlike its direct competitor Windows, you almost never hear of OS X or Mac OS violating user privacy in the news. Number 3. The updates are apparent, but they're not in your face. Apple has done an excellent job of announcing updates without forcing the user to install them mandatorily. This is the perfect balance of alerting the user to needed updates and giving users freedom. I can decide when I want to do the update instead of having my system held hostage for an hour. Number 4. Of all the operating systems, updates are least likely to cause a problem with Mac systems. Having worked in the IT sector since 1994, I've seen a good share of Windows, Unix, and Linux updates. With Mac, I only have a year of experience, but in that year, I've never once been faced with an unbootable system or a bug. To make up for my short experience with Mac, I do have 2 MacBooks, a MacBook Air, and a 2008 iMac. With the dozens of updates I've applied, not one problem, even so much as a tiny bug, has occurred. Number 5. A well-rounded if aging OS that is familiar and more intuitive compared to Windows. Everyone has their opinion and their favorite operating system, but as a lifelong Windows user, I can attest to the simplicity and speed with which I was able to learn OS X. There is simply no comparison to the dramatic changes of Windows 7 to Windows 8 and recently Windows 10. Every iteration of Windows puts everyday features in a completely new location. Mac OS, on the other hand, uses a predictable linear change to its OS features. Although many users complained about the lack of innovative changes with the recent release of the MacBook Pro 2016 model, I suspect the silent majority of Mac users are very happy knowing that the OS will still be very familiar and comfortable to them. It's like picking up the old worn baseball glove. It just fits so well. Number 6. Although Apple hardware support is very narrow, there is a reason. PC users are quick to decry the lack of hardware support from Apple, but one has to simply look at the remarkable fusion of hardware and software to understand why Apple does what it does. When you buy a Mac product, there is no doubt that the hardware and OS are going to work in perfect synchronicity. No irritating driver updates out of the box, followed by broken drivers that must be reinstalled time and time again, or forced driver updates as with Windows. The hardest part of a MacBook is figuring out how to turn it on the first time. Every component in the system works as advertised. Sure, you might pay more for your Mac and any peripherals, but there is literally no concern about whether or not it will work correctly. This is one of the key features Mac users are paying for, whether they know it or not. Number 7. Installation and uninstallation of programs. Having been in the Windows ecosystem all my life, I really came to despise the uninstall process of a simple program in Windows. With Mac, the concept of simply dragging an app to the trash bin makes me smile every time. How relieving it is to see an uninstall take mere seconds without dozens of prompts and a 10-minute wait, or sometimes even longer in Windows. When I first went to install a package in Mac, I honestly did not know what to do. Luckily, my wife was there, a seasoned Mac user. Just drag it into apps and drop it, she said. I couldn't believe something could be so simple. It was literally so easy. I was stuck waiting for some grand Windows install-like process to take place, complete with various prompts and a restart. Number 8. An app store that actually works. Since we're talking about ease of use, it's nice to see an app store that doesn't give errors 50% of the time or just plain crash and disappear, as I've experienced with Windows. Even with Linux, there are times when a package will fail to load using the GUI interface. Yes, I can use the command line and do, but who doesn't like a pleasant browsing experience like going to a store? If you think about it, one doesn't always know what they want to buy. The browsing experience in Mac OS is simple but fun and intuitive. Number 9. Install your open source apps here. Although not a feature of Mac per se, I love being able to use many of my favorite FOSS apps on Macs, such as LibreOffice, VLC, Firefox, Blue Griffin, CyberDuck, Handbrake, and many more. Sure, many of the aforementioned titles are available for Windows, but no one can deny they work much better on a Mac. I can't think of one time VLC has crashed on my Mac, for example. I can't say the same for Windows, however. Number 10. Full support for Google Drive and other competitor applications. Not really a Mac OS feature, but I do use Google Drive heavily for my teaching and research. It's nice to have a well-designed utility that is intuitive and simple. This is an added benefit that many Mac users understand. There's a good support from outside vendors for the Apple ecosystem. It would be a mistake if competing companies didn't take Apple's presence in the market seriously. That's why we can install Microsoft Office, Google Drive, Steam, and other tools that are not a part of the Apple ecosystem necessarily. Although these companies compete with Apple on some level, it makes for a win-win for the consumer. For Microsoft, Google, and Valve, it means greater exposure to customers, which does mean more sales. As always, thank you for watching and listening to my 10 reasons why I feel Mac is better than Linux or Windows. I promise no drinking occurred during the making of this video. If you enjoyed this video, consider sharing and subscribing. If you really enjoyed it, drop me a line and give it a like. If you didn't like it, be sure to drop me a comment and let me know how I'm a fanboy and was drunk when I made this video. For those of you who offer constructive differing opinions, thank you. I do read all the comments for or against. See you next time on Fast Gadgets.